is the Netherlands Parks Open Space Recreation and Open Space Advisory Board presentation for public input and feedback. Just want to say thank you to everybody and community members, especially who've logged in to hear what is next for your public park space. Community input is so vital. It's really so important, and both for the plans and just to really have a healthy, robust grant application cycle. We really don't want to make sure we're being transparent and you're getting all the information that you want. So how this is going to work, we'll move through the presentation. If you could just make a note of your questions, they may be answered down the line through the presentation. And then we're going to go over the timeline and the budget line items. And then we'll open up for questions from the BOT, from public, and from anyone else who has any concerns or questions or thoughts on the plan. So this is kind of our opening here. A lot of the aspects of this plan may seem fairly familiar because they should be. There are the listed priority improvements from the 2013 Parks Master Plan. So you'll see here an emphasis on multi-use shared community space and equitable access. We've reached out to a wide variety of local non-profit and local businesses, including the Netherlands Library, Netherlands Health and Human Services, New Explorers, Teens Inc., the Seniors, Wild Bear Nature Centre, Alps Coaching, Tadasana Yoga. Several residents have already sent in their feedback. So that's kind of just an introduction there, and we can click to the next slide. I'll mostly be just kind of reading at some of the information that we've got on here, and I'll try and truck through this fairly quickly. So in response to the unprecedented disruption caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, Great Outdoors Colorado launched a one-time Resilient Communities program for outdoor recreation, stewardship, and land protection projects. That they really want these to best reflect the community needs at this moment in time. So through this Resilient Communities program, GOCO will fund one-time immediate needs or opportunities that have emerged in direct response to the pandemic. So all within the context of GOCO's 5 program values. These are resource conservation, outdoor stewardship, community vitality, equitable access, youth connections. And then the proposed projects should address one or more of the following. So we really have to kind of focus on these themes here. Capacity and operations support. This is core capacity and operations with a direct connection to project and or program outcomes. Stewardship and maintenance of outdoor recreation and natural resource infrastructure, especially resources experiencing increased impact due to the pandemic. Community vitality, emergent needs that contribute to the community vitality and resiliency in this time. And then lastly, urgent and emergent land acquisitions. So those critical land acquisitions with really compelling urgency are those that have come to the fore as a direct result of the pandemic. And that's basically kind of the strategic plan from GOCO's perspective. So that's what they're looking for. So this is our community need here in Netherlands. During regular years, Netherlands sees high levels of recreational traffic. But due to the effects of the pandemic, this spring and summer, Netherlands parks have seen an unprecedented record number of visitors. I'm sure you've noticed if you've been down in the shoreline area. The western shoreline of Barker Reservoir sees a high volume of foot traffic along its only perimeter trail, and especially near the mouth of Middle Boulder Creek, where it meets Barker Reservoir. So this means many visitors are ending up in a bottleneck in that area, and they're struggling to maintain the recommended social distances right now. And this is caused by narrow trails and a lack of overall trails in that area. So visitors are being funneled along one path when they could be spread out much more effectively across the whole area, given the space that we have available down there. So that's why enhanced circulation is really a prominent feature of this project. In recent months, we've seen our public spaces and our greenways become critical havens. This is pretty important to stress. And this project will transform this unusable outdoor public space in Netherlands into a vital recreation and natural area, Barker Meadows Park. So within Barker Meadows, the town's historic Jeff Gratiot Memorial Ball Field will be rehabilitated, and across the creek, much needed restroom improvements will allow for the reopening of our vital community facilities We'll go back into a little more detail in a few further slides. Next slide. So this is, again, the 2020 Resilient Communities Programme. We're going to talk a little bit about financial burdens that Netherlands has seen. So as a result of COVID-19, Netherlands budgets have been slashed across the board. It's just been something that has needed to be done. The town has to balance the resulting budget, and also is finding ways to share and cut administrative costs and functions. And these are pretty steep financial challenges. And this means that at this time, Town of Netherlands has really extremely limited resources to expend on any non-essential personnel and programs. But we're trying to definitely emphasize that whatever Netherlands lacks in monetary resources, we do make up for it many times over in community involvement. And over this summer, the community has tried to come together during lockdown, and as restrictions have eased, we've had residents extending help to one another in so many different ways and trying to support our local establishments. But with an unemployment ballooning and the threat of worse financial pain for many still to come, neighbourly goodwill will only get us so far in the long term. So the plan is to engage with our many locally active non-profit organisations. And by doing so, the town will effectively be able to leverage some local resources and strengths. And the ProSAB is really believing that this project will relieve some pressure on our parks, the park's holding capacity, and also it's going to allow visitors to safely spread out in that area and enjoy the shoreline. We've written studies indicate that access to healthy activities can even lead to higher levels of gross domestic product and economic well-being. Slide. Great. This just talks about the value of parks a little bit. Oh, nope, there we go. Are we back? 5. Okay, yeah. As part of focusing on the overall health of our community, we've been asking this big question. So what is it that we can do to ensure all of our public spaces, natural and built, are safe and welcoming to all? In the midst of COVID-19, parks and outdoor spaces are even more special. So they're giving families and small groups of friends a safe way to be together, to relieve stress, to recharge your battery, and to provide healthy outdoor activities. This park improvement project, it will improve our community's mental and physical health. Communities are safer as a result of a wholesome atmosphere created by healthy activities and programming for all people. Living close to park space is consistently related to higher physical activity levels for both adults and youth. This is just a little excerpt from one of the public comments and the letters of support that we've received. The town has generously allowed us to use the public park to hold our classes outdoors. We are so grateful to have this resource available to us and to use the restrooms as they need to be retrofitted to meet new health and safety standards. This grant would allow town to do the necessary work. It would be great to have more and to be able to accommodate more use in our public spaces. And that's from Tadasana Mountain Yoga. A user of our park. Slide. So a big thing that this GOCO strategic plan is focusing on is equity within public spaces, and that's something that the ProSAB is pretty excited about. As you know, Netherlands is surrounded by forests, wilderness, and montane trails, and yet there is very little opportunity for residents to recreate within town. And this just disproportionately affects marginalised residents. It affects those who lack their own public transport, it affects the elderly, and it affects young families. So Netherlands is absorbing the challenges that this pandemic has brought to us and caused, and yet we're always finding creative ways to function. So school and daycare closures that raise the need and the usage of our parks and our outdoor spaces. And that greatly increased pressures upon Netherlands' infrastructure. So our young and our elderly have seen their routines totally upended and have been really seriously affected by the loss of their regular services. So just access to the outdoors and a few added recreational resources, it will really greatly enhance the community's ability as a whole to withstand and recover from these pandemic-related stresses. So improvements to our very limited in-town park areas will help foster a culture of resilience And it will do this by providing a peaceful outdoor space and recreational opportunities for all. It will be welcoming and inclusive to everyone, including our most vulnerable residents. The creation of ADA accessible trails will provide equal access for wheelchairs, walkers, and stroller users. And this area is also heavily used by dog walkers and joggers. And so widening the trails will help to accommodate the increased number of users that this shoreline area is seeing. And there'll also be lots of other amenities and features. Dog waste stations will be strategically placed around to help dog owners dispose of their dog waste correctly. Next slide. So this first little image here is showing our current the Barker Meadows Park site plan map. If you want to click again, Miranda, this will bring up our 2013. This is the plan from the 2013 master parks, the parks master plan. So if you can compare the two, you'll see a lot of similarities. It's basically, we were just taking the priority improvements from this plan developed in 2013 after a huge amount of work went into it. So we are using these priority improvements and focusing on these equitable access issues and amenities. And if you'll click again, Miranda. So this is the plan from 2018. You'll see it's pretty similar, but we have backed off on many of the structures that were put on Guercio Ballfield after public input from that cycle. So this is a good visual to kind of compare the different map cycles, and you'll see that the current map, it certainly does respect and honour the huge amount of work that's gone in over the past through past PROSA boards and town staff members to produce this long-term vision. Slide. This is also about preserving open space, and this small beloved open space within Barker Meadows is the Jeff Guercio Memorial Ballfield. It's unfortunately in unfit condition for youth to use for team sport. So right next to Guercio Field is Teens Inc., a 501c3 organization. I see we have Stephen here. So I'm sure he can talk a little bit more about that, but they provide youth services, outdoor leadership, soccer classes, youth employment, and they often serve underserved teens. So they'd like to be able to practice their skills out on this field. But the uneven ground and the small rocks out there have made playing hazardous. So Barker Meadows Park project, it will become a place that Netherland youth programs can use to run, practice their soccer skills, play baseball, and spend time outdoors. So even in 2013, in the Netherland Parks Master Plan, it was identified that this zone was in need of rejuvenation. So it's been identified as in need of help for 8 years at least now. And flat, undeveloped open space public land in Netherland is extremely scarce. So the goal is to maintain the multi-use benefits, to have a space available for team sports like soccer and baseball, but also for activities like dog walking, picnicking, frisbee, kite flying. And irrigating Guercio will ensure the hardiness of the grass that is needed right now to withstand short-term events and festivals. So this funding, it really accelerates a much needed parks improvement project and a long-term local vision for Netherland. It includes the priority components of that shared vision, first laid out and prioritised in the 2013 Parks, Rec and Open Space Master Plan. So you'll see this plan that the focus is really on native perimeter, trees and shrubs, and creating basic recreational opportunities that really involve either no entry cost or a very low entry cost. So for example, the cost of a ball it costs very little to go out and enjoy your natural space. And there's one little quote here from the Teens Executive Program Director from Ariel, who says, "Ensuring the capacity for teamworks to run is even more urgent than ever before amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Teens Inc. is located in the heart of the project area. An increased usage of lands has affected our ability to safely use the outdoor area near our building for classes or programs, for our alternative high school or out-of-school programs. We also run a preschool, which will greatly benefit from the work being done at Chipeta Park." Slide. So this is a little bit about GOCO Field and a little more about teens. So this area is a very rare flat open space in Nederland, and it preserves a treasured view of the reservoir from town and from East Street. And this funding, as I've said, it accelerates a much needed parks improvement project that's already been in place for many years, and it includes priority components of that vision. So that's going to be things like improving the visuals, like shielding some of the buildings at the shorefront from the view, and that will create a more pleasant and natural atmosphere. The ProSab has also discussed the irrigation needs of GOCO during multiple meeting times over the past year. So we've researched the pros and cons of many of these alternatives, and we've had discussions about the alternatives from temporary sprinklers to perimeter above ground watering to agricultural style, large scale irrigation to no water at all. And we've had in-depth discussions with our public works who are going to be the ones maintaining this space. And long-term maintenance is a very important factor for considering all aspects of this park. So the ProSab has really been collaborating closely with public works staff. And this is about creating a realistically achievable project plan and timeline. We really do think this project provides an appropriate balance between active recreation and conservation. So without irrigation, just to explain it a little further, it is unfortunately unlikely that the turf would be hardy enough to host our annual large events because the grass it will lack the resilience to bounce back. But our public works have discussed carefully laying out irrigation with a clearly and accurately delineated map. So that should allow for, and it will allow for, both a sports-worthy field and the capability to host occasional annual events. The Barker Meadow, that's behind, this is also called the gathering space, Barker Meadow, is also being restored. But that's been restored into a usable event gathering space with no irrigation. And so that option, you've got no irrigation and irrigation. It seems to be the best balance that we've come up with between a very active recreation and events with medium impact level and the need for resource conservation again. So for Barker Meadows Park to function really as a robust civic commons, it must belong to all. And we can talk a little bit more about some of the irrigation if you want. We've got more facts and figures for you. But let's move on to the next slide. All right, so this is talking a little bit about Teams Inc. and Teamworks. So the Barker Meadows Park project is really looking hard at taking a collaborative approach by employing a local Teamworks crew through Teams Inc. Teamworks is this awesome crew. They offer the opportunity for underrepresented local Colorado youth to engage in their public lands, to be part of a learning-based program and to earn money and scholarships through this. Teamworks employs all of its youth from Colorado, half from the Denver metro area, the other half from Nederland and underserved rural peak-to-peak areas. The youth are typically aged 15 to 19, and more than half of the participants are non-white. The majority of youth return for 3 to 5 summers. So this means that Teamworks provides local youth with a long-term connection to environmental stewardship. Studies have shown that when adolescents feel engaged in the creation of their own community spaces, they feel an increased responsibility and stewardship towards it. Teamworks also bridges the gap between a sustainable summer salary for many of these youth and a quality educational program. So this team will be employed as a crew with a team leader, and they will build trails and assist in the construction of the natural play structure. This is a valuable educational work experience and the opportunity for youth to develop skills and practices useful in life. I believe it's going to be a 12-person crew with two team crew leaders, and they will work for, is it 15 hours, I believe?
Correct, 15 hours.
Yeah. So the ProSab is interested in fostering these kinds of authentic partnerships. And this is really a big part of actively encouraging stewardship in this area, particularly among our younger populations. Adolescents with easy access to recreation are more physically active, and they are less likely to engage in unhealthy and harmful activities. Slide. A little bit more about stewardship here. So the process has also been co-hosting a series of noxious weed pulls with the help of our local expert ecologist and a couple of other wonderful people. And that's all about encouraging participation too from other local nonprofits too, especially those that offer outdoor education. And as you can see, at this time of necessary outdoor social distancing and virtual learning, local educators all over NED are looking for alternative ways to teach their students. So this Resilient Communities program, it really will connect kids and families to the outdoors by making it much easier to spend longer periods of time outside. This will be a park area featuring benches, shade, some interpretive signs, and a landscape free of debris and free from broken glass to enable children to safely explore their community's natural shoreline environment throughout the year. So really by engaging with these locally active non-profit organizations, this is helping the town to leverage some local resources and strengths. And this program is helping, well, it will help to relieve the pressure on our park's holding capacity. And so it will allow visitors to safely spread out and enjoy this shoreline area. Slide. So there are two outdoor-focused child education opportunities in Netherlands, the Wild Bear Nature Centre, which is a local nature and educational non-profit, and there is New Explorers Playgroup. Both organisations take children out on local expeditions around the Netherlands area, and they do hands-on learning about local ecology and geology, flora, fauna, all kinds of good stuff. And the Barker Meadows Park project, it will provide new outdoor class areas for these organisations and help create connections between children and the natural world. So Barker Meadow itself was reclaimed from the former sludge pond from the wastewater treatment plant. And now the goal is to preserve, restore and rehabilitate this space and to have it really multi-use area that will also in Netherlands climate resilience, and it will create new birding habitats. We're going to use native pollinator plants for bees, native trees, native shrubs. And children's educational services in Netherlands will be greatly benefit from this sustainable and a very forward-thinking parks project. And here we go, I have one more quote from one of the letters of support that's been sent in so far. Since the COVID-19 pandemic hit, getting outside and into nature has become more critical for our kids than ever. With schools closing or limited attendance, many parents are now homeschooling their children, and school staff are working as hard as they can to keep enrolled students outside as much as possible to prevent viral spread and limit exposure. We have never needed well thought out educational outdoor spaces more than we do right now. And that is from a parent of a child who attends New Explorers. Slide. So this is a little bit about Barker Meadow. Again, it's the open space reclaimed from that former sludge pond, and it's a potential event space, an amphitheatre, a gathering space, a natural area in years to come. One important thing to note about this project is that none of these improvements will hinder any future plans that may come in this area. So this is all very open. Rehabilitation of this area, it will be a huge morale boost to the Netherlands community. But the value of this space goes beyond the grass and the trees. It will create a healthier, more equitable place to live and help build connections between the town representatives and the communities that they serve. So this project is very carefully channeled towards creating low maintenance features. This really means choosing hardy, drought-tolerant grasses, native shrubs, trees, sustainable materials. It also affects the choice of seating and shelter. So we're very much talking with our public works about anti-vandal picnic benches, and other simple stone benches, which just mean less work for our very understaffed parks department. So Teens Inc. Team Works, they're very keen on collaborating with the town on the creation of both our trails, which is huge, and also a natural playscape using sustainable materials. The teens would be employed as part of the Youth Corps service, and they'll be learning about sustainable construction, tools, skills, building skills, engineering, leadership, and much more. So this quick mock-up shows one of the current earthworks artists under consideration, Jason Fan, the creator of Spirit Nest Play Structures. And we'll see another one of his pieces on the next slide. So this is one of the artist structures, playscapes under consideration. This is an artist called Jason Fan who teaches adolescent workshops. He teaches woodworking, building techniques, leadership skills. So if the GOCO funding is awarded, he is willing to lead the Netherlands Youth Corps Teamworks in building a small playscape similar to the one at Wright. These are play structures that use natural materials, and they require little to no maintenance at all. So from Jason's long history in installing many of these across the country, he hasn't heard any accounts of them being abused. In his experience, these playscape features become something that becomes really treasured by the community and protected. Here's a little quote from another letter of support that we've received from Electra Greer, director of the Netherlands Community Library, who said, "The opportunities afforded by this incredible grant, such as development of the western shoreline of Barker Reservoir, would provide invaluable space for expanding library services and building a strong, engaged community. A public recreational space at the shoreline of the reservoir would provide limitless opportunities for library programming and outreach well beyond this COVID time." So this is the Chipeta Park Pavilion restroom upgrade here. A large part of this grant funding will be going towards some pretty urgent upgrades to the Chipeta Park restrooms and pavilions. And these things are going to include touchless amenities, airflow upgrades, kind of doors, water fountains, and these will allow for these facilities to safely reopen. So the safe reopening of our public park restrooms is so crucial in providing our community and our visitors with toilets, with hand washing capabilities, drinking water, and it will also help programming from all these different groups who use our parks. Slide. So I think we're kind of nearing the end of this presentation. We'll talk a little bit more about the resilient communities. So according to a 3-year Soul of the Community study, perception of a community's performance in social offerings, openness and beauty, and that includes the availability of parks and green spaces, they say that has a greater impact on emotional bonds to a place than their demographic characteristics does. So this is very important. And also through following 2020 Netherlands visioning statements, Netherlands recreational development addresses issues such as the promotion of non-motorized travel, clean air, clean water, minimal reduced light and noise pollution, focused community education programs, and stewardship, okay, to reduce environmental impact. This project will help Netherlands preserve and protect its natural resources while responsibly managing active recreation and limiting the negative impact that we were seeing from overuse in certain zones. Barker Meadows Park is truly a shared community space. Current moment is exactly the right time to preserve its natural beauty while also providing outdoor opportunities. So I believe that is the final slide. I would just like to kind of round out with saying that achieving maybe a robust civic commons, it will require dedicated attention and it will require funding. And we as in Netherlands have been working collectively, past and present, on this vision for over a decade now. And I really think it's time for us to unite over a shared passion for our environment. This particular public space has been neglected for so long. It has been seen as something that would be nice to have, but not essential. Well, I think this is your reminder that equitable access to the outdoors, it really is essential. And the Netherlands Parks Department have worked really hard on this, along with ProSab and some town staff, and collaboration with Teens Inc. And then after this, I'm going to head it over. We're going to talk about the timeline. We're going to talk a little bit about the budget, and then we will open to public input, public for feedback, questions from the BOT. And then I would just like to remind everyone that we are looking for productive feedback right now, or constructive criticism. So if there's a component that concerns you or that you want more information on, do explain that, and then try and maybe think about suggesting a realistic explanation. So we'll move through that, and then we'll loop back to your questions after we've gone over the budget and the timeline here.
All right, thank you, Jessie. So just to allow some time for that feedback, I'm going to be quick. This is Miranda. I'm the Deputy Town Administrator, Town Clerk with Netherland. And these documents were available on our website. And so I would encourage you to go there if you want to look at them in further detail. But in essence, it's broken down into the different pieces that we're going to need funding for. So to start, you have the Barker Meadows Park amenities. We outline the Chipeta bathrooms, irrigation. These highlights are still pieces that we're working out what the estimated budget is. That's why you're missing information there. Labors, material, and professional services. So obviously we're missing 2 line items. So we anticipate that we're going to be requesting approximately $300,000 or slightly more for this grant. We do have some in-kind support, and this grant does not require a financial match, which is great. So most of our match is coming from in-kind between town labor, equipment, and materials, to also including Dillon Developers, Teens Inc. We obviously own the land, and then Eldora and the funding that they had originally had in place for last year's grant. So as you can see, we're going to ask for $300,000, but in our in-kind, we are able to contribute $159,000. So this is our draft budget we are currently working with. Jessie, can you still see this timeline when I switch? Yes. Okay, great. So for our estimated timeline, we're obviously doing our public outreach during September. We'll also go to the Board of Trustees on the September 15th meeting to review this with them. The grant is due in October, so we're just trying to spend this month getting as much feedback as we can from the community. We'll submit in October. The hope is we would be awarded in November. And then we kind of start the planning and design phase and securing some volunteers. And as you'll see in this plan, the bulk of the work will occur in summer of 2021, and with an anticipated completion date of October 2021, so a year from when we submit the grant. So Jessie, I'll go ahead and open it then up for questions and comments. And I think if people have anything they'd like to add, we'll just go ahead and start speaking, and we'll just one at a time. And again, like Jessie said, we are asking for that constructive feedback. Give us your thoughts and why, and some other recommendations of what you'd like to see.
Say thank you to you guys for all the work that you've put into this. As just a baseline comment, I know this is a hotbed issue and it's been debated a lot, but I just want to really thank you guys for the work that you put in. So that's what I'm going to say.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Maya. I just wanted to say it sounds like a really strong proposal, and I think that's awesome. I love the art installation piece. One suggestion I would have that maybe would strengthen the grant is to link the work that you're proposing to improved water quality by protecting Barker Reservoir. And then also, since you're focusing on the bathrooms at Chipeta Park, I think all over regionally, we've seen human waste concerns increasing with the recreational impacts. And so maybe you can make a connection to water quality there. I feel like from a stewardship perspective, that is sometimes a strong connection, but really awesome.
That's huge.
Oh, and yeah, I had one other thing on the timeline. I saw that the trees and the plants, you suggested planting them in July and August, but I would suggest moving that to October and November, which you'll have better survival rates, or maybe October if you plant in the fall.
Good point. Yeah, that's
good job. Good presentation too.
one thing, if for anyone who's not able to verbally share their feedback, we do have the chat feature on. I see that Kathleen just chatted, so please go ahead and type your comments too if you're unable to speak through your microphone. Any other thoughts, comments? Oh, I had Amanda. Sorry, Amanda, I had you muted. Amanda, did you have any comments? I muted you. I'm so sorry. Go ahead, Amanda. What are your comments?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm so impressed with that presentation, and I'm just so amazed at the work that you all have done. And I my biggest thing is that, and there's just so many different pieces, but my biggest concern is just that you can still have some events there. I think that those events can be a source of revenue, and I just wouldn't let that go just yet. And I understand, working around COVID, but, with the idea of that hopefully that's not our future forever. But I think everything was covered really well, but I just really want to reiterate that I think they should keep a flat space that you can have maybe, a carnival in the future, a rodeo, miniature golf, something. Things that can create revenue, because I'm just afraid another green park, can be expensive. I'm glad to hear that you're working towards, I don't know. The one thing that sticks in my head is there's Chipeta Park. That's a green park that people can go throw a Frisbee and sit on a bench, and you know what I mean? And so I feel that, maintaining an area that's a little more flexible for potential revenue in the future is important. That's all. So. But yeah, excellent presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, you're awesome. And the irrigation systems. I mean, I understand it. I just know how testy that gets, and I also know that fertilizers and all that stuff. That's just mowing, and it gets expensive. And I think that along with the trail path system around the reservoir, which is amazing. Really starting to maybe, I think a lot of people don't even know about Chipeta Park, and it's just such a shining star and so fantastic. So that's all, but thank you so much.
Thanks, Amanda.
Okay.
Thank you, Amanda. Yeah, I think signage and finding is for sure something that we're going to have to focus on too.
No, I just, every time I come down to Chipeta, they've got the kid area, they've got the green area, they've got the pavilion. I just think utilizing something you already have or advertising it a little bit more too,
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone, should we talk a little bit further about irrigation? I know that's kind of a hot button subject. I'm happy to kind of go over that a little.
Well, you're saying that they, market. I mean,
yeah,
I just think it's really important to say, it's one thing, all of a sudden it's like you can't drive a car on it, you can't put a tent up, you can't, you know what I'm saying, to clearly define how people can have events in this area. And I completely agree with you about all the green space. And I mean, you got the, the skate park down there too. I mean, I don't know if that's being addressed at all, but that's, I think that should be an interesting component to the whole thing. I'm just saying, like, you might say, oh, we'll mark it off, and then all of a sudden you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. And, I'm not saying the whole thing, but
yeah,
I really do think it would behoove you to keep you talked about soccer and baseball, but also I think you should think about future revenue instead of, how much is a green park going to take to maintain? How much does Chipeta Park cost a year to keep green and watered and fertilized and mowed?
So we did receive that question, Amanda, from another person, and I believe our public works team is pulling. I don't know, Chris, if you have those numbers yet, but when they had some time, we're gonna look into the cost of Chipeta. Do you know, Chris, yet how much it costs to water Chipeta?
I'll have to get back to you on that information.
Amanda, you're on that email, so when we have it, we can also share it, and we can share it on our webpage as well. the answer to that question.
All I'm just saying is like that would be my concerns of moving forward to have another green park. You know what I mean? Is to say, well, geez, how much is it going to cost? And actually, how many months out of the year is it actually usable? And those kind of things. But
We don't actually pay ourselves to water the park. I mean, it does cost money, and I'll research how much water it takes to water Chipeta Park. It's not actual funds that come out of the town's pocket.
okay. I mean, I'm just saying it costs a lot of money to keep it green, right? I mean,
It costs something to make water, that's for sure.
no, and maintenance, and I'm not saying. I was just, if I would definitely would like to know like how much it costs to maintain Chipeta, and then if it was going to be this on top of it, and just balancing out an area that may be used for revenue.
That's definitely a question. It's something that we have definitely talked about among ourselves on ProSab too. Yeah, I wish our head of parks was here to explain a little deeper, but I have a few notes that I took from her feedback about irrigation that I would love to get us into a little bit deeper, because I think we should probably really like go through the pros and cons of that. So she did say if the irrigation is above ground, then it becomes an issue with freezing issues. This is just talking about the ball field too. The whole other events area is going to be left completely natural. So we'll be open to all kinds of events. But yeah, above ground irrigation could lead to freezing issues. It will have storage issues to consider. There will be CIRSA insurance hazards, liability concerns from the Public Works Department. And she did say it was actually less cost effective to have above ground system. Yeah, than an underground system, just regarding like long-term maintenance and the ease of setting up and taking down, and kind of the annual processes that they have to go to. As far as like below ground was, the Public Works did say that they could drop the lines into a deeper depth than they do over at Chipeta. So that would mean that you could still stick a large industrial-sized tent stake in the ground without any concern, but also that the lines would be accurately mapped out so that you could drive trucks over, you could have still activities on that field, you could still have your medivacs flying in for for Flight for Lifes. And so we've been kind of given some kind of reassurance that a system would not affect the ability of future events to occur. So that would be the goal.
That's one thing to me, and like you said, the soccer, baseball, or like I said, maybe even Ned used to have rodeos down in Chipeta Park. I'm not saying that that's what people want, but other events could be a source of revenue instead of just that's my only concern. It's just you don't want to just have something that just costs you money but doesn't give you a revenue stream.
Yeah, and my other concern was that of an environmental concern of just the sustainability of using water. But I guess apparently even like grey water cannot be used on a park according to state regulations. So there's a lot of kind of bureaucracy that follows with this stuff too.
Yeah.
Karen Blakemore, I thought you had your hand up. Do you have a comment? Recommendations?
I have a couple questions. They're not related to irrigation though. If we want to move on.
Yeah, please, Karen.
So I love the twig structures. My concern would be the wind. So just to make sure that anything that we construct could withstand the heavy winds. And then on the map, I see an access road with added parking. And could you explain a little bit more about that road? Is it two-way? Is there a turnaround? What will the parking look like? Is it parallel parking or diagonal or perpendicular? I see it's probably needed for the restrooms. And does the access road, it looks like it just runs north-south. It doesn't go north-south and then east-west.
Yeah.
So it's a 2-lane road?
Yeah, two lane with a turnaround.
With the turnaround. Okay, currently what's there? Is it just one way?
It's just an unmaintained dirt road right now, so it's probably about 3 lane.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just to notice on that too, the parking area there, as you'll see those dotted lines around the Barker Meadow. So anything to the north of that, I guess it's technically northeast, is belongs to the city of Boulder. So the city of Boulder are included in these conversations. As you'll see on the 2013 map, you'll see parking is shown on both sides of kind of the access road there, but City of Boulder have requested that we removed all those parking spaces from the eastern edge of the 2013 plan. So they're just parking along the one side. So I'm guessing it would be diagonal, but there's definitely little issue, like certain components like that would need to be finalized.
Jesse, this is Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, thanks for all your work. I think this is a great plan, and I appreciate all your efforts. I just wanted to make a point and piggyback off an earlier comment that as far as wayfinding is concerned, and letting people know where certain amenities are. I know that the DDA is really interested in wayfinding, and it might be good to partner with the DDA and working on that kind of signage.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
we did talk about that in both ProSab and SAB's last meeting. So I think, and Jesse and I talked about, I think it'd be a great collaboration amongst all 3 advisory boards and commissions because they all have similar interests. So I look forward to kind of merging that together. I think that would be great.
There's a very small budget line item on there set aside for interpretive signage. So it wouldn't be a whole lot of signs, but just a few maybe explaining the historical importance of Barker Meadow, why it's got its name, kind of the history of how it came to be, and a few other ecological signs that maybe talk about the watershed, the importance of wetlands and ecological conservation, and a sign, to encourage stewardship and to look after this area.
Would you mind sharing this PowerPoint with me? I can't read all of it, and so when you have a chance, if you could send it to me, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we are going to come up against the Board of Trustees. We use the same meeting link for the Board of Trustees. And so I guess maybe just in the last 2-3 minutes, if there's anything else, you can definitely always email us. The request would be your comments go to the prosab@netherlandsco.org, and I'll put that in the chat. But is there any kind of final thoughts or comments? And Stephen, we have so Stephen just asked if we asked GOCO if maintenance equipment is an eligible expense, and if so, if a mower could come out of this grant.
This year, for the first time ever, it is, and that would be for this year. So
that can be.
I wanted to ask a question. Is that possible?
Yeah.
I was just curious about the performance space that was being discussed last year over by AmeriGas in front of that area. Is that still part of the plan with the stage and the electrical and all that?
Shall I talk to that a little bit? Yeah, so it's Barker Meadow Park is just kind of the name of the area. So the performance space is still there, but that was never, it's not a ProSab thing because GOCO will not fund amphitheaters or stages or anything of that such. So kind of what we've done here is just rehabilitate the land and leave it open, and so that any future kind of amphitheater or event space, it could still go into it. Nothing should prohibit that from happening. So that's a DDA project.
Wouldn't DDA? Huh? Okay, wouldn't that then be fine for festivals in that area? Isn't it going to be a big spot that could
It'll be,
accommodate?
it'll be great. I think it'll be a lovely space for festivals and
Because
events.
a lot of the concern was about the grass, for not being able to have festivals, but the festivals would then be over there in the performance space or in that area.
Yeah, it's over doubling the amount of space that would be available to events and festivals, and the farmers market could set up there, and now there's electricity.
Yeah, with the farmers market at the ball field is kind of planning on just being a big field. Is that right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it sounds kind of lame, but what about using fake grass? Have you guys tossed that idea around? Just, I know like a lot of soccer places, you know, like in Coal Creek at the K-8 school, they use it there. I mean, it's just something to think about. You know, it's probably expensive at first, but I think it's preferred, you know, for sports. It you know, like professionals or whatever, like the leagues and stuff. I think they use the fake grass. Anyway, just putting it out there. Maybe not for the whole field though, of course, but there's going to be some also landscaping and whatnot along the edges, correct?
Yeah, just perimeter.
And I'm guessing the idea of a bike park then got scrapped because so many people were against it.
Just the idea of a bike park in that area. We've got some ProSup have had some interest in leads on an excavating company that would be willing to donate $20,000 to create a bike park in a different area of town. That's probably, we'll save that for a different conversation.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I was never against having a bike park. Yeah. I didn't like it in the field, but
good.
It'd be kind of fun having it near the skate park since they're both kind of similar ideas where the kids could bring all their stuff and some, you know. I mean, I like it, the idea of having it somewhere else, but then it's just like, where's that other? I mean, that's another conversation, but.
I mean, I can tell you right now, the so-far proposal is up by the rink, the net by the rink and tennis courts.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, by Moat Lake and stuff. That makes sense too. Okay. Those are all my questions. Thank you. I'm just thrilled to have anything there, and just want to support anything that pushes that forward and get that area looking good. So thank you guys for all your work.
Thank you,
so our Board of Trustees meeting starts in 4 minutes. So my ask would be that if anyone has, so we apologize if we cut anyone off, couple updates. So please email us any other feedback. We also have a socially distant walkthrough of the Barker Meadow Park area on Friday, this Friday, the 4th at 10 o'clock. We'll meet at Gercio close to Teens Inc. So we'll send out more information about that, but we'd love to see you all there. And then Nikki Dunn couldn't be here with us tonight. She's our park supervisor, but she will be at Chapita Park with me when we do the Envision 2030 outreach. So from 10 to 11, she will be available to talk more about this plan if you'd like to come and meet us there. And as always, you can call or email. But we thank you all. And Jesse, thank you for an amazing presentation. And thanks everyone for coming. And stick around for the board meeting if you'd like.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very exciting.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.